Well, another day and another Championship Manager special as this summer merry-go-round is in full swing. Today we are back to talk about, well, I think a bit of a weighted news, isn't it? It's not been a very well-kept secret that Sergej Jakirovic is going to be the new man at Hull City. The head coach signs a 2-year deal with an option for a further year, replacing Ruben Selles, who guided them to safety on goal difference last year after that disastrous start under Tim Walter. We're going to talk a bit about the new man as always, but first, we always reflect on the previous manager and the last year or so at the club. And it's pretty important with Hull City because actually, I went to a game at the end of March, which obviously was Hull City v Luton, ended up not being decisive as I was in the away end that day. And it sort of showed something very important for me from maybe a year or two earlier as how far these two teams had fallen in terms of quality on the pitch. Now, we've said this for the last year or so. We said it in the manager special where Tim Walter was appointed from Liam Rosenior. Getting rid of Liam Rosenior was still the most stupid thing that Hull City have done and will remain so for a long time because he's a brilliant young English coach. He's gone and done very well in France and he was sacked for finishing 7th, which was the first time Hull had finished in the top half of the Championship since they'd been relegated from the Premier League. So he'd done a remarkable job and he got them right on the cusp. But as we know, the owner, Achin Idakali, has got this obsession with attacking football, which is why he then went for Tim Walter, who we discussed in that manager special in the summer, was never going to work. I watched a lot of his Hamburg team and they underperformed because, while yes, they were entertaining to watch, they were as open as they come. And we saw that for the large part with Hull City in the brief spell with Tim Walter in charge. And then what I found really ironic is they went for Ruben Selles, who had built a reputation on being a solid, tactically adept coach who built sides that were strong at the back and rock solid. And that's exactly what Hull City became. So we've then gone from a situation where Liam Rosenior was achieving well and being sacked from being maybe a little bit too dull in terms of playing style, according to the owner, to a manager in Ruben Selles that produced the side that scored the least goals in the Championship last year. Hull City only managed 44 goals, and the entertainment was not there, considering they wanted to go for this all-attacking style, which was the whole reason they made the change from a manager that had chased and almost got them into the playoffs for the first time in years. If you combine that with the fact that they then had the worst home record in the division, were the only side to win 5 or less games at their home stadium last year, had a negative goal difference at home, and while they did have one of the better away records in the division, only scored 20 goals on the road, less than a goal a game, it does leave you scratching your head and asking, where has it gone wrong in the last year? Because people would have forgiven the Liam Rosenior change if they'd gone and been the entertaining side that was suggested. But to make that change because you were performing well, but you weren't exciting enough, to then go and be the lowest scorers and only just avoid relegation the next year, thanks to my side being so dreadful at the back, is pretty worrying, isn't it? And that's where the new man comes in, because Sergej Jakirovic is the new man in a Hull City. Let's go and have a little brief look at the statement. But I should say as well, Ruben Selles did his job. He came in, he kept them up, he did a solid job, got over a 30% win rate. Well done to him. But let's have a look at Sergej Jakirovic, who maybe on paper is a bit of more of a match made in heaven, though for the most part in his career has managed sides that were expected to win. Dinamo Zagreb, Rijeka, Maribor, sides like that, all expected to get wins for the most part, and Shrinsky as well over in Bosnia. But he did do a good job in his last role in Turkey. So before we go and talk about that, let's have a look at the statement. Hull City are delighted to announce him as the club's new head coach, a 2-year deal with an option for a further year after reaching a settlement with his former club. What I find fascinating about this statement is very often you talk about the achievements of a manager early in a statement, how well they've done, pushing a side safe. Well, that's all the way near the bottom. The first paragraph after the details of the contract is the Bosnian, known for implementing an exciting and attacking philosophy, averages 1.84 goals per game while boasting an impressive win ratio of 58.9% from 292 matches managed across 4 countries. So it's very clear where the priorities are in this appointment. It's not about results as much as it is about entertainment. And that was the same for Tim Walter. But I do think this head coach may be a little better before you go and dig me out for that. It is important that we dig into those statistics a little bit though, because as we mentioned, with Dinamo Zagreb, with Shrinsky in Bosnia, a 58.9% win rate, or winning most of your games, scoring a couple of goals a game, is expected. You are at the dominant teams in the division. So it's a little bit of a misleading stat compared to a manager who comes in with a 30% win rate, but has maybe been battling relegation at some top championship clubs who have fallen on hard times. So when you compare it, say, oh, he's got a better win percent rate and more average goals per game than Liam Rossini had. Well, yes, but it's not really the same level of club comparative to their competition, is it? So there is a little bit that's got to be taken into account there. It can't just be, oh, he averages 1.84 goals a game. It's going to be exciting here. This is going to be a new level for him as well. It's a manager with no championship experience, but plenty of experience as a head coach, and that's going to make a difference too. Did a really good job in Turkey in his year there, and has got an excellent win rate at almost all of his clubs. Obviously got the very infamous goodbye now from Turkey, didn't he, with stuff being thrown at him the other week. But looking forward to seeing what he can produce at the club, because I think while they're clearly focusing on an attacking manager, and they need to, because, lowest scorers in the league last year, worst home record, those things have got to be improved. And there's obviously going to be a lot of change on the pitch in the summer. We've seen Puertas now permanent. There's going to be other adjustments too. But there is no doubt that Hull City need to become a more potent threat. I mentioned that Hull Luton game I went to a few weeks ago. I watched a couple of Hull's other games in the run-in. They are toothless. They don't look like scoring for the most part. The Luton game I went to, Hull were a threat from set pieces. The delivery was pretty good. From open play, I mean, neither side created anything. It was a dreadful game of football. If it wasn't for a comical defensive mishap, it would have been a 0-0 draw. And Hull City sort of survived on being robust and solid at the back rather than being able to produce anything going forward. And while they obviously have a far worse squad than they did when Liam Rossini was in charge, they bought some of those great loan players in the end of the previous season. There's no doubt that they've gone backwards on the pitch in terms of recruitment and off the pitch in terms of coaching. So that's where the new man has got the pressure on him. However, he has done a very good job in his, 5 months in charge in Turkey, 29 points from 17 games, guiding a club that was in trouble to safety. But one of the things you see in the statement is Achin talking about his dream for the club. They always want to be an exciting attacking team. And I don't think he's going to be satisfied until they're playing all-out attacking football. But that's very hard to combine with success in a championship. Yes, Vincent Kompany produced a team at Burnley that were able to dominate games, score goals, and be attractive to watch. But most teams that get promoted from the championship aren't able to do that a lot. You saw last year, Burnley went up because they had a ridiculous defensive record. Leeds United, a lot of games where they were frustrated despite their brilliant goal scoring record. And Sunderland, most of their wins were 1-0, 2-0. They weren't an entertaining watch for the most part, didn't dominate possession. So it's a very hard ask to be a dominant championship team, to have lots of possession, to create bundles of chances, and be frequent goal scorers and have the success and the points total to show for it. It's not always the way that it works in the second tier. So it's going to be intriguing to see if the manager can adapt it. But I do think, looking at his record, that you have potentially a slightly more balanced manager than Tim Walter, who was attack at all costs, even if it meant underachieving at Hamburg, which is what he did, by the way. Whereas this coach has achieved results. Yes, there have been blips in the road. Was sacked at Dinamo Zagreb after their heaviest ever defeat at Bayern Munich in the Champions League, where they shipped 9. And given Hull's defensive record kept them up at the end of last year, if they can't find the attacking players and the attacking style to score goals, that defensive side could be a worry. But there's no doubt that they've got a coach with a bit of experience who is able to produce attacking teams. The worry is he doesn't often stay at clubs for a long time. He either burns out at a club, has disastrous spells where the attack dries up and then they just concede lots, or in instances like this, takes the next opportunity after 4 or 5 months. And that's perhaps my worry for Hull City moving forward. We've talked where he needs to improve. I think it's fairly obvious. If you've got the lowest scorers and the worst home record in the league, you survive on goal difference because a terrible team conceded more goals than you. You do need to improve going forward, but it can't be at the expense of that defensive record, which in the end did save them when all else failed last year. I would expect there to be a lot of turnover on the pitch because the squad has regressed massively in a year from where it was under Liam Rossini. There are obviously key players who were poached last summer. There were loans that ended for players who had a huge impact on that squad. And I think this summer they're going to need to back him in a transfer window if they want to be able to push on as well. But it is an open championship next year. There are a lot of teams who will be looking and thinking, if we have a good summer and we have a lucky run with injuries, we might be able to push on for a playoff place. We saw last year after the top 3 or 4, and the year before, in fact, there is always a little bit of an opening space for the 5th and 6th in recent seasons. So maybe Hull City will fancy being that team if they can get the recruitment right. But for Sergej Jakirovic, it's going to be a very interesting season. My worry for Hull is, look, we know that the manager is not afraid to wield the axe. If the style doesn't instantly get implemented and produce results, or even if it does get implemented, but they're not winning every week, we saw with Tim Walter what will happen there. Again, I think he's a better coach than Tim Walter. But the other side of it is, and we're seeing it with disappointment, if he goes into a club and does well for 4, 5, 6 months, and he has a brilliant start at Hull City, then a Premier League job or a top championship job pops up with a big club in, say, December, January time. Is he going to jump ship? Because he's proven in his career he's very happy to do that, as he has by taking his Hull City job. But overall, the questions we normally ask before we finish these episodes, and yes, it's very hard to judge how he's going to adapt to English football, but the two questions we normally ask are they going to see out their contract, and how are the club going to do next year? Now, he's definitely not going to see out his contract because Hull City have not kept managers long term under the new owner. Despite the fact that Liam Rossini finished 7th and took the club forward massively, he was still sacked for not being entertaining enough. So I can't see him seeing out 2 years. If he does really well, I would imagine he'll probably get poached, and by the looks of things, we'll be happy to move on. However, if we talk about Hull for next season, I do think this appointment will enable them to improve. As I've mentioned throughout this episode, I think there's a lot of work to do in the transfer window. I think they need to replace some of the players that left either at the end of loans or on transfers last summer. There is work that needs to be done there, but if he is given the tools to perform, I do think he's a good coach, and I do think he will improve them. Whether or not it's enough to get them anywhere near the top end of the table is a very different question, because Hull City were 21st last year. There is a lot of work to do, but it was proved from the year before, if you can drop 14 places in a year, you can sure as hell gain them back the same way. I think he's a good head coach. I think he's got the attributes to do a good job at Hull City. The unknown quantity is how he adapts to English football, how well he's going to be backed in a summer transfer window. But if those things go okay, I think Hull City will have a better year. And if they stick with him, I can see them being more expansive, certainly, than under Ruben Selles, more solid than they were under Tim Walter, and maybe start to find that happy medium that I thought they had under Liam Rossini a year or two ago. And if so, I would back Hull to probably finish comfortably in mid-table and probably even into the top half, to be honest, because there are a lot of teams in the Championship that have gone for uncertain appointments this year. We've seen West Brom with Ryan Mason, who's never managed a senior game as a permanent head coach. We've seen that Bristol City are going to have to change now because Norwich City have taken Liam Manning. There are a couple of other clubs where we're still waiting to find out what will happen. Middlesbrough and uncertainty. A couple of the clubs that have come down may be set to lose their head coaches as well. Will still, again, we have no idea what to expect in English football. And there are a lot of clubs in the middle of the table where Watford, another example, gone for a head coach with no English experience. It's one of those summers where we're going to get a lot of uncertainty, as we had a couple of years ago. It's going to be intriguing to see which of these head coaches adapt best. But for Hull City fans, it doesn't matter what I think. What do you think about this appointment? I know there's been a lot of frustration over the last year from the Hull fans I know at the way that Rossini was let go, where most of you said it was the wrong decision, and the way the next year has panned out with poor recruitment on the pitch, and in Tim Walter's case in particular, a pretty poor decision of it. And in one in Ruben Selles that, while did enough to keep you up, wasn't one that really reflected the club's style and was never going to work long term. So I'm intrigued to see what you think of this appointment. Are you excited? Are you more hopeful for a good summer transfer window and a better season next year? Or do you worry that if this one goes wrong again, it could be a repeat of the cycle of last season? Get your thoughts in the comments below. Championship fans, let us know what you think. Are you worried about Hull City coming back up the division and challenging next year? Or do you think it's going to be another season of struggle for them? If you did enjoy our little look at the new Hull City head coach, then please do chuck a thumbs up on it. Thank you for watching as always. There are plenty more manager specials to come. We've talked about Bristol City, Borough and a few others that currently are or will be looking for a new manager soon. We'll have specials as soon as all of those vacancies are filled. So subscribe and turn that notification bell on to stay up to date with all of them. We're just 6 weeks away now from our pre-season predictions for all of the EFL. Championship score predictions every match week as well. The 25-26 season is going to be an exciting one, and I hope you'll stay here and join us for it. Thank you very much for watching as always, and we'll be back soon when the next Championship manager vacancy is filled.